This isn't my first YouTube video, but it's my first honest one. Over the past 20 years of my life, I've learned a lot. I've been through a lot of experiences, and I wanted to share them with you guys open and honestly of just what I've been through and how I have dealt with them, so that you can walk away from this and without having to go through them experiences, actually be able to implement the stuff that I did consciously or subconsciously off the back of going through that stuff. I'm not doing this from the top. I'm not doing this from a million miles ahead. I'm actually still working through this stuff myself, but I've come a long way myself. And I want to show you guys exactly how you can do the same and how I actually use what I've been through to coach my clients to this day. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. I'm going to take you right back to the start because I think it's important for you to understand where all this stems from. So I grew up as an only child. I was born in Wem, little town, probably never heard of the place. Pretty normal start. But very, very early on, I was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis, which essentially meant that my legs and my ankles didn't want to work in the way that they should do anymore. Basically, from the age that I learned how to walk, it was just completely taken away from me. And I had to overcome that and build on that. And it affected a huge portion of my childhood years throughout the whole of primary school pretty much because of that one thing that happened to me. Because it meant a lot of hospital trips. It meant going through chemotherapy. It meant being the kid that stood out, that sat on the bench, that wasn't good at sports, that couldn't really interact with the other kids the same, bullying and everything else that comes through that. But I don't want this to be a sob story. I want to actually show you guys how I built off that. So, because I'd gone through all of that stuff off the back of this thing that was completely out of my control, by the way, not something that I could really stop. It was just something that happened to me, and there's always going to be stuff in your life that is going to happen to you that is out of your control, but will have a massive impact on how you go about your day-to-day life, and that's okay. But the lesson that it actually taught me is to focus on the things that you can actually control, not the things that you can't. If something goes wrong in your life, you can't sit there and blame people. You can't sit there and complain. You can't sit there and just be like, why is it me? Why is this happening to me? No, you've got to separate yourself from that thing. Understand that it's a time period. It's something that is just happening there and then. And actually, no matter what you do, it will just figure itself out. Now, that doesn't mean that you just sit there and wait around for stuff to figure itself out, but it does mean that actually if there's something that you can't control, something that happens to you, whether it be an injury, whether it be an illness, whether it just be something that gets thrown in your way, whether it's actually something that's impacted someone else around you that then directly correlates and impacts you, that one thing is just that one thing. You can't identify yourself towards that thing or your actions towards that thing, because if you do, that will hold you back massively. And you probably will take a lot longer to get over it because you're constantly thinking about how that thing is always affecting you rather than looking at the positives out of it and what you can learn from it and how you can overcome it and focus on the things that you can actually do. And that's exactly what I did throughout that time period, probably subconsciously because, let's be honest, I was very young. But I still remember my early years. Although I was being bullied, although I was the kid that stood out, I actually weirdly quite enjoyed them because I was different, because I was able to do different stuff, and I just focused on the stuff that I was okay at, that I could do. And yes, there would be sad days, and yes, there would be days where I'd come home and I'd curl up in a little ball and I'd just try and separate myself from it. But when I look back on it now, I actually don't regret any of it. I don't blame anything. I don't complain about it because I made the most of that time. And yes, it probably felt shit in the situation, but again, it was just a time period and you've got to realise that. Now, with that thing, obviously brought a lot of bullying. Often the side effect of bullying generally tends to be anger. And anger management for me at primary school was something that I had to deal with a lot. There was a few different circumstances, and I won't go into too much detail on these, but I was bullied a lot by a few people in particular when it built up. and I lashed out. I shouldn't have done what I did. Nobody was massively hurt in the process, but it scared a few people, and it wasn't me at all. And I'm glad that it happened then, because it gave me that realization, that wake up call to be like, Finn, take fucking control of this, because otherwise, in later years, it's good that it's happened now at primary school. Nobody's massively been hurt, but if you do this in later on in life, if you continue to act that way in later on in life, it will cause big issues. You will cause a lot of damage, and you'll regret a lot of things. It actually led into my teacher calling the police on me, which was not great, and meetings with head teachers and stuff like that as well. But that pain that you don't understand right now, that pain that you're going through, if you build it up, if you keep it in, if you don't have an outlet, which I didn't at the time, I was just keeping it up. No, I can't react. No, I can't react. No, I can't react. No, I can't react. No, I can't do anything about this. I'm just going to hold it in. One day, it will snap. That was a terrible click. One day, it will snap, right? And you've got to know when that thing happens that it isn't you. And you've got to stop yourself. And the way that I actually went through this, obviously I went through anger management and stuff like that when I was in primary school because of it. And the number one lesson that I got out of that was taking a step back, taking a pause, 1 to 2 seconds, 3 seconds, pause. And just by doing that, and it sounds easier than what it is, but you have to practice it time and time again. It comes with time, right? You have to take that thing, and it could be a anger problem, it could be a sadness emotion, it could be anything, right? If you take that emotion and you just hold on to it for 1 to 2 seconds, your reaction will be thought out, it will be processed, it will be something that you can control, and it will be you. It will be your actions that you actually want to take, not just something that happens out of emotion. And this comes into other areas of your life as well. Acting out of emotion constantly will never get you anywhere. We're emotional beings at the end of the day. If we treat everything with emotion, we'll have a lot more regrets, we'll make a lot more bad decisions. You've got to think about things a little bit more logically in weighing up the good things, weighing up the bad things of what might come of your actions, and then acting off the basis of that rather than what you just feel like in the moment. And the other thing that you can do with that is actually find something where you can release some of that anger, release some of that emotion in something that is going towards a positive cause. Now, for some people, that might be a sport, that might be playing football, that might be just being out and about, being active. For other people, it might be actually more of a creative outlet. All of this stuff is good. All of this stuff is you getting your emotions out of your body, out of your mind, out of your person, and getting it and putting it into something more positive. Now, for me growing up, I couldn't do sports at all. I was really, really bad at them. As I said, I was last to be picked, can't throw, can't catch. Still very bad at that stuff to this day, even as someone who has done lots of stuff to do with fitness, right? But what it taught me is I still needed that outlet. And sometimes people question what that outlet will be. Again, fuck them. That's their problem. They can have their opinions if they want to. But actually, for me, growing up, that was acting. A bit of a weird thing. Not that if it's weird if you do acting, I actually really enjoyed it. But as a young lad growing up, I was one of the only people that did it, bar the other people at the acting class. And through that, I landed a lot of lead roles. It massively built up my confidence. It massively built up my voice and being heard and being able to express that emotion and turn it into something positive. And it also taught me how to create that alter ego that you can step into in uncomfortable situations. There is a lot of positives that I don't probably realise that come from that. But all of that happened because I chose to do something that was a bit weird, was a bit different, but actually I was good at, that I enjoyed, that without anyone else's opinions around me is actually what I would have chosen. All of my mates went and played football. I tried it. I was awful. I tried doing it a few sessions. It didn't really work out for me. I gave it a good go because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to do that thing, but it didn't work for me. And once you find that thing that you actually works for you, you've got to stick with it. And that will change over the years as well. I don't still do acting now, but it was definitely a big part of my childhood. Alongside that, another thing that I did while I was growing up was cycle to Barmouth, which from where I live is roughly around 100 miles, and I did it at the age of, well, I would have been in year 4 at the time. It was one of the times when I was actually going through the process of managing my anger as well. And I think having that physical outlet as well was really good for me. It meant long, hard training as well to actually get to a point where I could do it. And both of these things massively built my confidence in that time period. And it didn't come from fitting in. No one else was cycling, no one else was doing this stuff. But it came from just choosing something to do and fully committing to it. Doing the stuff that was uncomfortable and committing to it. Saying yes to the things that you actually want to do but feel scary and actually committing to it. I remember a time when I was acting that the person that managed the production come up to me and my voice had dropped and they were like, we need you to sing, and I was like, no, I can't sing anymore. And they were like, no, we want you to do this role. It was actually Bill Sykes in Oliver Twist, and they were like, we need you to sing, and I don't think I can sing anymore. I was good at singing before, but I was like, I can't, especially solo, that's not happening at all. But they were like, no, we need you to do it because you're going to be great at the rest. And I was like, okay, cool, right, let's just work. Let me do the rest of it, because I think I can do the rest of it, but honestly I don't know if I can do this whole singing thing. And they were just talking me through it, and they were breaking it down, and actually, again, from committing to it, from giving it a best shot, was it my best performance? Actually, it wasn't too bad. I was quite happy with it by the end of it, but again, it took a lot of practice, it took a lot of time, it took a lot of repetition, it took a lot of doing the stuff that was uncomfortable. And when you can do that, when you can turn your energy into that thing that can do that thing, you will be able to achieve things that you didn't think were possible. Please, 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 take anything from this. Go and do the stuff that's uncomfortable, because you will grow so much from it. But let's be honest, there's always going to be ups and downs in life. There will be periods of your life where things are high, there will be periods of your life where things are low. And after all of that great stuff that happened, my parents actually split up when I was quite young before that, but they still got on really well, so I didn't really see much difference, bar I got 2 Christmases, which was great as an only child. I got more experiences because we're kind of doing things separately. I didn't mind it too much, but my mum actually got married to someone else when I was younger, and it seemed great at first, but then there was a lot of conflict, there was a lot of arguments, and essentially, not to go into too much detail, but it ended up with me having an argument with my stepdad at the age of probably about 9 or 8, basically telling him fuck off and get out of the house because I've had enough of you talking to my mom that way. Yeah, I know, big old me at the age of 9 doing that, but it was tough, and I know it definitely wasn't great for my mom either. She actually ended up drinking a little bit more. I've never really spoken about that at all. It made me feel quite unsafe around her at certain times. Most of the time she was great, never hurt me or anything like that. But sometimes the way that she spoke, and that I could tell that she was drunk basically, and that wasn't really thinking 100% and stuff like that. And I spent a lot more time at my dad's house because of that. Up until the point where my mum had a fall. She fell down the stairs. Something so simple. Ended up in a coma for about 4 months. Now, still isn't 100% to this day. She can't walk, eat. She has 24/7 care. You can speak to her. It's hard to get a conversation back. So that definitely affected me a lot. It knocked my confidence massively. And everything that I'd built on and built on and built on and built on and built on to that point was basically, again, just ripped away from me. And I went back to bad habits and not feeling like I fit in at all. And this one support mechanism that had really, really pushed me to do all this great stuff and come out my shell and do the acting and do the bike ride and be active and not let my arthritis see as the thing that kind of controlled me was kind of gone. And there's a few lessons that I actually learnt from that. At the end of the day, nothing is sustainable. Things are going to change. Things are going to get thrown in your way. Things are going to give you a bump in a road and you won't know how to deal with them. And as I said, with the arthritis at the very start, again, you can't let it control you. I think if I hadn't gone through that whole journey of building up from my arthritis, that actually I'd probably be in a completely different position right now, because I didn't really have that push, that drive, that enthusiasm that I had when my mom was still normal, I guess you could say. And waiting for the right time is a lie. We never actually know what is going to happen tomorrow. We never know how things are going to wake up. I literally woke up on a normal school day, got to the top of the stairs. I could actually hear my mom snoring, like... I was like, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be good today. I'm gonna get up, get myself ready, got myself dressed, had a shower and stuff. I was like, right, let's go make myself some breakfast. And I know that she'd been on nights and stuff for a few days beforehand because she was a paramedic. So I'm just gonna let her sleep, let her chill out. And I'll go back up just before I leave for school, and it'll all be fine. Got to the top of the stairs, looked at the bottom, and there she was. She wasn't in bed snoring. She was actually at the bottom of the stairs snoring and completely knocked out. And the snoring noise was her tongue being folded back in her mouth. And it's actually really dangerous because if it gets stuck and air doesn't come back up, that's how people actually suffocate. So I didn't really know any of that until obviously the doctor told me afterwards that was the case. But it was very scary for me, and I was like, well, what do we do in this situation? My dad was at work at that point, so I was like, right, I'll call my nan. She came round, I called the ambulance, she sorted my mum out. Air ambulance, whole shebang, coma for 4 months and all the rest of it, right? But it basically taught me that life is so short. There was so much that she wanted to do that she didn't end up doing. There were so many things that she said that she wanted to do, that we were going to do all this, we're going to do all that, that we're going to go all these places and do all this cool stuff. And like that, when she broke up with, or divorced from her husband at the time, it was one of the things that she said to me, we're going to travel more, we're going to do more stuff. And we did. We went to Canada together. We went to Italy together, and I have great, very, very fond memories from that. She bought a camper van. She had a camper van at the time. Did lots of camping trips and stuff like that. And it was great. But there was so much more that she wanted to do that now she's probably never going to get a chance to do again. And that made me realise from a very young age that we do not have tomorrow as we think we do. And that waiting and saving and doing all of this stuff that I'll do when I retire, and not enjoying the moment and not putting your all into every single day and making the most of it it's not really normalised anymore. And I'm glad to a certain extent that experience happened, because I probably wouldn't have realised that otherwise. A lot of my mindset about everything that I do today comes from that. And it told me to take risks, do the stuff that feels a bit off and feels scary, because worst case scenario, you just end up where you were before anyway. It never actually changes anything, but what does change stuff is when you wake up, or at a certain time in your life when you wake up and things aren't the way that you thought that they were, and your whole life is flipped upside down, and the only thing, speak to anyone, the only thing that people ever say is negative is regrets of not doing stuff. That's it. They feel like they should have just done more and enjoyed it more and taken more time off and not worried about the money or savings or anything like that, and just gone out and done it all. Done everything, taken the risks, figured it all out there and then, just living at a slightly faster pace. And people talk about slowing down and just chilling out and just letting it all figure out. But for me, I can never see life in that way anymore, because that happened to me. I know that she had so much more planned that will never ever happen now. And it was because she didn't take enough time to do the things that she really, really enjoyed. See, I'm quite passionate about that, if you can't tell. See, nothing is stable, and waiting for the right time is a lie. There will never be a right time. The only right time to do anything is right now. That then led me to do the complete opposite of everything that I've just said there and then. I was eating a lot more. I was using it as a comfort thing to cope. Obviously got quite chubby because of that. I was quite isolated. I didn't go to clubs and stuff like that. As I said, I was never really into sports anyway. Didn't really spend that much time with friends and stuff like that either. I kind of closed myself down for a good few months. And it was that Christmas, and I remember this, it was that Christmas just before that I decided, no, I can't continue like this. She wouldn't want me to continue like this. I obviously couldn't speak to her at the time because she was still in the coma at that time. I was probably 12, 13 at this point. And I just started watching these videos, Matt Does Fitness and stuff like that. And Mike Thurston was the other one that I used to remember watching a lot of. and their information and teaching stuff and about the gym and eating healthy. And I was like, right, there's a few different changes I can make here. So first thing first was the eating. I cut back all the shit, got rid of all of that, started eating a little bit more healthier, encouraging my dad to buy me more protein stuff, because that was all I heard was protein, which I don't think is a bad thing either. I still agree with that to this day. And I obviously didn't have a gym at the time. I didn't really tell anyone I was doing this either. Obviously, I spoke to my dad about the food and stuff, but there in my room doing my little ab routines, and so I was like, I need to get rid of this chub. I kept on doing that. Then I started doing some more cardio stuff. It was tiny, it was like a treadmill and some old dumbbells, I think was the first things that I had access to. I used to go in there on a night time, spend about an hour or two just lifting whatever I was doing and following some kind of plan that I'd found, and running and stuff like that. I was incline walking, and then I tried a bit of running, and it was really, really tough. My ankles didn't feel the best from it, and I lost the weight. It happened. I was obviously in a deficit without probably realising it too much. Cutting out all the shit. I was obviously a lot more active as well, and from that I lost a lot of weight. But then I ended up really skinny, and I was like, great, now I don't feel any more confident. Little story, a video actually went around my school of me doing my progress stuff, because obviously I recorded myself so that I knew my progress over the time, and I was feeling confident, and then that massively knocked all of it again. And I knew I wasn't big enough. I couldn't, everyone was telling me that I was ripped, that I was shredded. I had sick abs, I'll give myself that, but to me I felt small, I felt weak, I felt like I couldn't do anything. And then obviously that then led into building on my physique and going down that route and putting on muscle and putting weight back on, the right kind of weight, putting muscle on, stuff like that. Anyway, the lesson that I learned from that was that the body was the first place that I ever felt real control. Everything else at that time period was up in the air. I had no control over it whatsoever. I couldn't control what happened to my mum. I couldn't control what was happening at school. There was so much stuff that was completely out of my control. But the one thing that kept me sane and felt like I was still in control throughout that whole time period was the fact that I could control how my body was. I could put the inputs in, I knew what the outcomes were, and that was it. So that was my focus. I focused on it a lot, and mentally it put me in a lot better place. And if you're in a time period right now where you don't feel like you've got a huge amount of control and stuff going around you, I urge you to give your body, your health, your fitness, a real shot. Start to control that, and I promise you, it will teach you so much about how you need to act to get results. Just do it. You can't control what's going on in your job right now. You can't control what's going on with your family right now. You can't control all that kind of stuff. Please focus on yourself in that time period, because not only will you feel a lot better about yourself, you will feel in more control. You will come out of it with more confidence. And the last point, you will come out of it feeling like you haven't just wasted that time. You haven't just sat there feeling sorry for yourself, not doing anything about it, actually getting worse mentally, because obviously, as I said, I started eating loads of shit and getting into that mindset. And if you can turn that around, and worst case scenario, if everything else goes tits up, you'll still come out of that time period feeling better within your own body and feeling more capable. That is the number one thing that you will come out with, is being able and having self-belief in you. Maybe not everything else around you, maybe not the circumstances, but you. And that is really important. And that then leads me into how my school years were. Not the best. I also wasn't the worst though. I wasn't the worst behaved kid ever, but I was kind of acting up to fit in a little bit. I didn't, as I said, throughout primary school, I didn't fit in at all. So when I went to secondary school, I was like, right, I want to try and fit in. I want to try and be cool. I want to try and do all this stuff. And I tried. I probably took a few bad actions because of that. Nothing crazy. It was in just messing about and shit like that, having a few talkings to from teachers. Really badly fell out with my business teacher, actually, because she'd never run a business in her life, and I didn't particularly agree on that. So the lesson that I learned from that side of things was actually that I was questioning the systems before understanding how to build one. Everything that I was doing at that time period was just questioning what I was being taught and who I was listening to. And that is really important. Throughout the whole of your primary school, which is when most of your beliefs, your childhood is when most of your beliefs come into place. You've got to then, as an adult, question all of that. If you weren't questioning it there and then, you've got to question it now. Question everything that you were taught. All of the stuff that you've been fed into your mind, you've got to question it. Because I promise you, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but when you put it into play, it makes a hell of a lot of sense that these kind of things were built on a system to make people good at working in factories back in the day. That were good at making people listen, sit in rows, do what they needed to do, follow a system, be good at that certain thing, and that be it. Not question anyone, not question the people above them, not question any of that stuff. Every time you do that, you get told off for it. But actually to just listen, do, and improve on what they want you to improve on. You've got to question that. Because there is so much in that that will hold you back later on in life. And until you can actually uncover that and break down them beliefs, whether it's from your tutors, your teachers, your parents in a lot of cases, your friends, just question it all. And actually, you can agree with it. There is going to be obviously some stuff that you will agree with from school. There is going to be some stuff from your parents that you will agree with. There is going to be stuff from your friends that you will agree with, but if you question it, at least you are secure in your belief. And you know that you actually are secure in that belief as well, which is really important. That then brings me on to my work chapter, I guess. Obviously, throughout school, I didn't really touch on this, but I wanted to do architecture, left school, couldn't draw, couldn't use CAD or anything like that, so knew that I wasn't going to go down the route. Then started to follow my passion. I know a lot of people struggle to find their passion, but I promise you there is going to be something that you do right now that you do enjoy, right? There is going to be something that you do. And in this day and age, you can turn anything into your career if you actually really commit to it. So we're in the best time ever to make the most of that. There is people that make careers off literally travelling. There's literally anything that you do, but you have to put the work in. That's the number one thing that people make mistakes on, is they question all of this stuff first. They then hate on the people that actually go out there and do something different with their lives. And then they don't believe that it's possible for them because they're not willing to put the hard work in. And if you can come over that, you will get to a place where you are much, much happier and start to build on a journey where you are much, much happier, and you can have that belief that you can actually be a little bit delusional and actually go out and achieve that stuff. That comes me on to work ethic and money. Really, really early days. I'm getting a little bit into this video now, so thank you if you're still watching. Stay around, right? There's still good points to come onto this and actually some more adulthood points in this as well, right? Work ethic and money really, really early. I was labouring young throughout school. My dad's a builder. I used to go with him, paint fences and just do little mundane little tasks he obviously didn't want to do. I'd do them, I think, at the high during school. I think it was £20 for the day, which worked out about £2 an hour. Allegedly, it wasn't child labour. I chose to do it. It was bonuses. I'll cut that off, but it wasn't child labour. But I actually really wanted to do it, right? So I was saving up this pocket money and I had pride in earning. I was saving up this pocket money. It worked out about 100 quid a week. By the end of the summer, I was like, that's 600 quid, which for a 13, 14-year-old, I was like, that's ace. That's like great. Like I can do stuff with that. That's awesome. And I used to do that. I was on half terms and stuff like that as well. But I used to save that money. I didn't used to spend it. And I took pride in that. I was obviously labouring young. That then brought me on to saving my pocket money and stuff like that as well throughout the time period. And having that work ethic and that money mindset from a young age massively helped me. And being able to actually, even though it was small amounts of money, being able to actually use that in the right way was really useful. Because then it meant that actually once I was able to get a job, which my first job was working at an Indian restaurant, great fun. I actually really enjoyed it. Learned a lot from it as well, which is probably a whole different video to be fair. But it meant that I was earning and I was saving. I was earning and I was saving because there and then it was the most important thing that I could do. I couldn't take big risks. I couldn't go out and do stuff and I couldn't do all of that kind of stuff. Set a goal of what I wanted to buy with my money and I'd be like, right, save, buy it. Save, buy it. And that was the routine that I got into, right? At the age of, I don't know how much I can say this, but at the age of 17, I saved up a good 12, 14 grand. of my own earned money because I was working 36 hours a week in a restaurant while I was also at college. And I had very little outgoings bar like petrol and my car essentially. So in a very lucky position at the time. I was obviously young as well, 16, 17, building that up. The first big purchase that I ever made was a BMW, which was my dream first car, but got an Igo first and then got a BMW afterwards, which is really, really cool. Really enjoyed it. Still have it to this day. Been a great car. It's been through a lot of battles, but it's been a great car. And that's where I learned that money gave proof in capabilities, but it doesn't always give proof of security. And this will lead me on to my next story. What I mean by that is that when you save, when you put the hard work in, you save, you earn the money, it will give you proof that you can actually do stuff with that, right? Which is really good. But it doesn't mean security. Money is not endless, especially when you are earning based on hourly rates and basically minimum wage, which was essentially what I was on. I was on a little bit more than minimum wage for my age, but below minimum wage for 21 plus. But it taught me that if you do work hard, you can build up that capability to do stuff, but it's not security. You can't expect cycle to give you security long term, because what I realised is as soon as I did purchase that BMW, you then have more outgoings, and when you have more outgoings, it's harder to keep things up. So I carried on saving, tried to build this thing back up again. And I love cars. That's always been that's what I splash money on. I don't buy expensive clothes. I don't buy expensive trainers. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't vape. I don't cars is the only thing that I'll ever, for enjoyment wise, cars and holidays is the things that I'll spend money on because it's experience for me. I love cars, love driving them, love all that kind of stuff. And I really enjoy travelling as well. So that's my two outlets on money that don't make me more money, essentially. So, but as I said, it didn't prove security because what I realised is actually once you start spending money and you get into adult spending of money, which generally tends to be more stuff that is cars and places to live and holidays, and it very quickly disappears, which I'm not particularly proud of, but it does disappear, right? And the reason because that happened is because of two things. One, you live more means than what you actually have. So you basically try and live like you're richer than what you are. And two, because whatever job that you work, if you're anywhere close to minimum wage, it is nowhere near enough. And this is why I urge people to actually be paid what they're worth, whether it's in a job, in a career, or it's starting their own business and charging their own prices. Either of them two things will give you a hell of a lot more flexibility with your own money. And I'm not saying that business is going to be easy, by the way, at all, by any means, but it gives you that opportunity in the future, and that's really important. So, that was my 7th point. Burnout and clarity. So, obviously, as I said, I was labouring young, built up that restaurant work, became a restaurant manager at the end of it, and progressed in that career, but I knew that it wasn't enough for me to actually make something out of it. So that brings me on to burnout and clarity, right? When I left college, as I said, while I was at college, I was working 24, 36 hours a week whilst doing 3 to 4 full days at college, which a full day for me basically meant essentially 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Not that I was at college that whole time, because it was an hour and a half away. It kind of took that much time up. Obviously, on the days that I wasn't there, I was working 6 to 8 hour shifts. So I was working very hard while at college. And then when I left that, I then started personal training. I started at Pure Gym. Again, very long hours. 6 a.m. in the morning to 8, 9 p.m. at night. Sometimes it was even 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m, which I'm not proud of at all. Leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning and getting home at 11 was not the one at all. And obviously, if anyone knows anything about Pure Gym, you basically pay to work there. PTs don't just get to PT for free. You don't just pay your gym membership and that's it. I was paying 600 and something pounds rent at the time and getting paid about 500 quid after taxes. So essentially I was down 150 quid each month before I'd even started, whilst I was still working 16 hours for the gym. which was so backwards at the time. Really unsustainable days. I was doing a lot of classes. I didn't enjoy it at all. Clients were great and I enjoyed that side of things, but it was really hard to get clients in a budget gym and weigh everything up and that kind of thing. So gave that a good shot for a good, I think it was like 4 or 5 months before I quit. And I was like, no, that's enough. Took up another opportunity at a different gym. I actually took up a couple of opportunities at 2 different gyms at the time to replace it, and left all my clients, started having to build my business again from the ground up. Again, long, unsustainable days. And that was when I fell upon my first mentor, who taught me a hell of a lot about what is possible in this world and opened my eyes up to online coaching and hybrid coaching and stuff like that. And what I was doing at the time was PT for an hour or 2 or 4 or whatever my clients wanted during the week. And then what I would do with them is manage their nutrition and manage their just day-to-day life outside of that as well, outside of them hours in the gym. And what I realised is that after a certain point, most of the results were actually coming from the sessions that they were doing on their own and the nutrition and stuff that they were doing on their own and the mindset and stuff that we were working on behind the scenes. So I was like, right, okay, well, if that's the case, then why can't I do this more with other people up and down the country? And I was building up my social media at the time, and when it hit May, a few things had happened. Basically built up my client basis to a point where I was able to quit my gym hours. I was doing 25, 26 hours of PT each week alongside my online coaching. I was busy. I didn't really want to take on any more. It was kind of full in the evenings, full in the morning, and I was happy with it. But as I said, it was just very long days. And I don't mind hard graft, right? But when it comes at the extent of your own health, you've got to know where to draw the line. And for me, it was exactly that. It was when I was doing 6 a.m, leaving the gym at 9 p.m. at night, working on Saturdays and Sunday mornings and Sunday evenings in the gym. And it was just, I realised that the results basically come from outside of that. And I realised that I was actually able to build up a better relationship with my clients outside of that as well. So when I had done that, it then flicked a switch in my mind. And this was more so towards the start of this year, right? So I quit the gym floor in May, travelled around Europe for 3 months in a Porsche that I bought with a mate of mine. Best time of my life, but took my foot off the gas completely with my business. Basically, I was replying to clients and doing their check-ins, but apart from that, social media completely dropped, and everything on that side completely dropped as well. So was just trying to build back up again since then. But that brings me back to that. So what happened was that because I built up this thing, I was like, it started to trigger a thing in my mind that a lot of the conversations that I was having weren't actually about how to have better meals or how to train better or all of that kind of stuff. It was more a question of why are these things happening and why are these things coming up? And I found that 9 times out of 10, it was based off the people around them and the situation that they were in. And the problem is that as a fitness coach, you don't really have much control over them 2 things, which then becomes a constant battle in trying to get them to overcome them things without actually helping them to overcome them. So I was like, right, why don't I just give this a go and just be like, do you mind if I help you with that side of things? And that's kind of what I started to do without realising it. And then naturally, then people become a lot better mindset around things. Their life as a whole was much more in control. They had more ambition for the future. They were enjoying things. They were having more purpose around life. And actually, that then stemmed into their fitness. And I was like, right, well, I am a fitness coach. But if that's where the change comes from, why not focus on that and then allow that to make the fitness easy? And that's now what we do to this day, because most people think that their problem is fitness. And yes, there is changes that people need to make in their fitness, but it's actually real life structure. It's what they're doing day to day. It's the mindset that they've had. It's the people that they surround themselves with. And as I said, all of this stuff that I teach my clients is through my own personal experiences, which I've actually had to delve back into because as a kid growing up, you're not really aware of this stuff. So I've had to go back into that and understand how I dealt with it without actually understanding how I dealt with it, and going into that and understanding the learnings and the subconscious stuff that was going on at that time. And then bringing what I've learned from my mentors that I've invested over 20k now, I think, into there or thereabouts, into this as well. And by doing that, you get a really good perspective of someone that understands the struggles, understands what people go through on a day-to-day basis, and can actually use that in their current situation to not just bombard them with stuff from people that are way ahead of them that they don't need to hear right now, but can kind of feed them and lead them into that place where they can actually start to have more of that mindset around things. And that is where the real change comes from. And it's really special to see. And it's very cool to see. But that also led me to another problem, which, as I've learned a lot more about marketing, angling a business and marketing is one of the biggest things that obviously you need to focus on when it comes to getting new clients in. And obviously people go through programs, people learn a lot, and then once they've got their change, a lot of them will stick with me. But some people will leave, so because they've got to a point and they're happy to do it on their own, often people come back and they kind of go around in circles and stuff like this. But to actually grow a business, you have to have a clear marketing angle, which I then struggled with because I was like, well, how the fuck do I explain people that I help people with their life as someone that is 20 years old? Because it doesn't naturally come from, if you're 40, 50 and you're like, right, I'm a life coach, it's like, cool, this guy's had 30, 40 years experience, they can then bring into that. So that's kind of hit my plateau with my business. And this is kind of why I've started making these videos, because I really struggle with bringing what I do into short form content. And now when we're making this shift towards more life coaching, there's a little bit more explanation that needs to go behind things. And another insight for you, or another teaching, is that progress often feels like regression while it's happening. Things will feel unnatural. Things will feel like they're not going in the right direction, especially when it's you that is changing. When your mindset is changing, it's very hard to have tangible outcomes, right? And then mindset shifts will turn into tangible outcomes in the future. But right here and now, they won't feel like much is going on. And sometimes in them time periods, you have to understand that you're growing for your future self before your reality is almost caught up to that. Because as soon as you start acting like that person that is doing that thing, the rest of your life will catch up with that. Because how can someone that acts a certain way or does certain action not be at that level eventually? But it does take a bit of time for this stuff to come into play, right? So that's currently where I'm at with things. So if progress doesn't feel like it's moving forwards, but you feel like mentally and your mind's being opened up to this stuff and you're shifting your mindset and you're becoming less negative and you've got more hope and you've got more ambition and you've got all that kind of stuff, and you've started to push away all the noise that comes with people that don't believe in you, actually once you've done that, it's only a matter of time before the next thing comes, and you will obviously see that with myself over the coming months. The real takeaway of all of this, to wrap this up, is that you don't need a perfect plan. You don't need motivation. You need to be able to respond in the right way to the things that happen in your life. Everything that I have been through up until this day has been a response of something that has been thrown at me. And the only way that you can overcome that, and the only way that you can understand that and make the right choices off the back of something happened to you, comes from two things. Number one, your own experience. Understanding yourself is the most critical thing that you can do on this planet to move you forwards. If you don't understand properly what is going on in your head and why you are doing the stuff that you are doing, you will never, ever change. Is it tough to do? Yes. Is it hard to do? Yes. Is it a little bit emotional at times? Yes. But once you can understand that, you can then make the changes that you actually need. The second part of that is learning from someone that's been through a similar situation. Because everything, as I said, everything that I teach, everything that I go through, in my early days, come from probably my parents and their guidance. And now it comes from my mentors. And if you can do that, and you have them two things, because your mentors, or the people guiding you, won't know what to do with you or what to tell you if they don't properly understand you. And for them to understand you, you have to understand yourself, because you have to be able to explain that to them. And once they understand that properly, they can then give you the advice that you need to push through it, to move forwards, to get to where you want to be. I've spent years learning this stuff. I've listened to hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of teachings. Spent a lot of time investing in myself, implementing it, doing it. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Because you've got to be patient with these things as well. So, key takeaway from this. Obviously, I've just said you don't need a perfect plan, you don't need motivation, you don't need responsiveness, right? You need to be able to respond to things. But with that being said, if you spend your whole life responding to things emotionally, without direction, without purpose, just based off how you feel there and then and what is going to make you feel better there and then, the kind of stuff that you regret an hour later, 2 hours later, a week later, a year later, you will never get anywhere. You have to respond in a way that fuels your future pleasure and not your current pleasure. Please. It is easy to do the things that are easy. No shit. Obviously. But it's why 90% of the people in this world, especially men, are stuck in a position that they don't want to be in. Tell themselves that they want to change. Tell themselves that they want to do better. Have ambitions to change stuff. And then they don't. Because they don't take responsibility for it. They lead into current comfort over future pleasure. And they just spin their wheels for their whole life. They wake up at 60, 70, 80 with regrets instead of fulfillment. It doesn't matter how old you are right now. You've got to make them changes. Whether you're 25, whether you're 30, whether you're 18, however old you are, whether you're 50, whether you're 60, it doesn't matter. I've worked with people all the way from 17 all the way up to 78. It doesn't matter. The number one thing that you have to do is take responsibility and take the right actions following what is thrown in your way. Life is always going to throw shit at you. You've got to fucking deal with it. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for taking the time out to listen to my story. I appreciate it. And if nothing else, I hope this gives you a little bit more of an insight into my life and into how I coach. Build systems off the back of your own experiences. And I promise you, if you follow them, it will make things 10 times easier. I shall see you all very, very soon.